and welcome to this edition of Spotlight with Sandhya. Joining us today is a political economist from Hyderabad who believes in speaking truth to power, keeping aside family and personal considerations. Dr. Parakala Prabhakar was the media advisor to Chandrababu Naidu when the Telugu Desam party was in power. Prior to that, he was the spokesperson for the BJP in Andhra Pradesh. He is now an independent media analyst and commentator, and he believes in pulling no punches when he critiques the government for its handling of the COVID-19 situation and the several economic and social issues that he highlights every week. Welcome to the show, Dr. Prabhakar.
Thank you.
So let's talk about something that you were already talking about much before the pandemic hit, the slowdown in the economic growth in India. And now, what is your prediction? What is going to happen?
We are in for a very tough time, Sandhya. And then, the first pandemic, which was actually quite mild, that itself had caused almost about 75 million people falling into poverty.
Poverty, right.
So, most of the jobs that are gone, have not returned, Sandhya. And this particular thing now, for instance, if you look at the data from the railways that are coming out, the last 20 days or 25 days, about 15 lakh migrant workers have left Mumbai. And, Maharashtra economy is suffering, which is the industrial powerhouse of India. So this is the overall picture. So which means that even before the second surge, the second attack, including IMF, many international agencies have forecast that it won't be before 2023 that we will be able to return to pre-pandemic level. Now, here is a catch. Even pre-pandemic level for India was quite low. We were already in slowdown.
Right.
So we have to go back initially to pre-pandemic and then go back even further to the pre-slowdown period. Now you can imagine. I don't think we will have a reason to heave a sigh of relief before 2024. This could be very pessimistic, but it looks like that, unless something very, very unexpected and unpredicted happens. Another thing is that even the last time the government of India has not been able to address the demand side of the economy when they released the stimulus. They address the supply side. Now, in situations like these, what you need to do is don't be very cautious about the fiscal deficits and address the demand side, put money in the people's pockets so that they can come out and buy things and demand things. So that is when the economy starts, reviving. That is what exactly the American economy has done. Under Trump, before he left, he announced that $3 trillion stimulus, and in between it was about 900 billion. Now, after Joe Biden came, he announced $1.9 trillion stimulus. Now, therefore, you could see that there is a 6.5% growth of the American economy in the last quarter.
But we don't see any signs of such stimulus happening in our country. And what really upset me the last week, amongst many other things that are currently upsetting all of us, is the sight of, these plane loads of relief vaccine landing in our country. It's been a long time since India had to put out a call for help and we had to get foreign aid. And this seems going back to that era. And, India being the vaccine capital of the world and having grandly gone and distributed vaccines to other countries. And now we don't have enough for our own people. And this is something that I think, since you are an economist and you can draw a parallel with how the lack of planning, how the lack of reading the numbers right is now put us in this particular situation. What do you say, Dr. Prabhakar?
Sandhya, I think you have raised a very, very important point, very relevant. You see, yesterday's Guardian, London, and many other newspapers, I'm just citing Guardian, had a quarter page advertisement for appeal for funds to help India. One organization in Britain, they've given an advertisement in the Guardian newspaper that, we are organizing help for India, please donate. This used to happen in the Western countries by the non-government organizations and by charities, etc., to help African countries, Ethiopia, famine and things like that. When you see such advertisements, you feel very bad.
Absolutely.
We were supposed to be pharmacy of the world, as you said, the vaccine capital of the world and things like that. But you see, somewhere, the government was too early to declare victory against COVID.
Right.
Too early to get into self-congratulatory mode and no forward planning. And as far as I know, there is no meaningful consultation with expertise in the country or elsewhere. There is a lot of expertise. I do not think the government has had any serious consultations for advice with experts and epidemiologists. And on the other hand, I do not know what the Niti Aayog is doing in so far as the forward planning is concerned. What the Economic Advisory Council of the Prime Minister is doing in terms of, advance planning for the economy. This is a very sad situation. And another thing is, you see, initially, this government of India has taken the entire thing into its hands. And of course, there were accusations that the state governments were not consulted, etc. But keep those controversies aside. Now, today, the government of India is saying that, it's the state. Why don't you blame the state government? Why don't you ask the state government? No, state governments have not.
Exactly.
See, when you said that, we won a victory against COVID,
right.
did you remember state governments? Was there no part played by the state governments in that? Today, when you see all these, queues queuing up for oxygen and queuing up for beds and ventilators, etc., now you remember the responsibility of the state governments. This is not a fair game. In fact, when you declare something as a national pandemic, it's a global pandemic now. Which government has more responsibility? It is the national government which has more responsibility.
It counts as a national emergency. It's not just a
national emergency,
right? It is definitely counts as a national emergency, and decisions should have been taken that way.
Yeah, in consultation, you take everybody on board. You take the state governments on board. You take the health experts on board. You take the economists on board. Have a consultation, have a plan, implement, and then monitor it properly. Make people accountable. There is nothing of that kind of a initiative by the central government, which is astonishing. Sandhya, look at the vaccine situation. We need, in order to, there is this very important principle that you must keep in mind in dealing with pandemic. For pandemic to end anywhere, it has to end everywhere. You cannot have a virus with some people and keep the rest of the country and rest of the world safe, because it spreads. So in order for pandemic to end anywhere, it has to end everywhere. Which means in India, even if you completely shut down India and there is nobody going out and nobody coming in, if you can keep India in a bubble, even then you need at least 70% of the people vaccinated.
Right.
Now, if you want to achieve that, you remove the pregnant women and children. You need at least 70 crore people to be, vaccinated, which means twice, 2 doses. 140 crore doses you need to have in your pipeline. How much do you have? You don't have. In fact, it's in the pipeline. Yesterday, I think the RBI governor had said that for the entire vaccination program to be completed and rolled out, it would be somewhere around next year or next year.
So
another 2 years or so.
That's a very, very long period. And I'm sure in between we will still keep having the requirements of these localized lockdowns. So I would like you to explain to us, if a government has to take this decision about a lockdown, how do they weigh the costs of, the people's health against the effect on the economy and the social impact? It's not an easy decision at all. So can we discuss that?
Yeah. No, you're very right. It's not an easy decision. But you see, we all understand that lives are important and livelihoods are important.
Right.
But then, Sandhya, if you have to choose between, if at all, God forbid, if you have to choose between life and livelihood, what do? Life. Now, you preserve life of your citizens and wait for 15 days, 20 days, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever time it takes to, then try to revive the economy. Meanwhile, when it is shut down, when people are not working, when people are not drawing their salaries, people are not able to buy their food, then put some money in their pockets. That is called stimulus. Stimulus is not, giving money to the industry to produce things, because if you produce things, there have to be people to buy.
Exactly.
They need to have purchasing power, isn't it? So you need to also address the demand side. So livelihoods and lives, if you have to choose between these two, I would suggest that any government should choose life first and see that the livelihoods are not affected in the long run. Just save yourself, save your life, and then quickly, stand up to work. That should be the principle in deciding whether we should go for lockdown or we should not go for lockdown. Now, if you go on saying that livelihoods will be affected, then of whom? You can't. Sandhya, I do not know how many people are aware that the death rate is so underreported. Infection is so underreported. Everybody, it's for everybody to see. The dead bodies that are coming to the crematoria are much higher in number than what is reported in the government bulletins.
True. Now I want to ask you a very personal question, if you will permit me. Since you're very vocal about your criticism of the BJP government, how do you feel whenever your remarks or whenever your articles are reported with the headline, Finance Minister's husband attacks the government? What is your reaction to that?
Well, number one, that's a fact. The second thing, maybe you have this in mind that, how do you feel as a man to be referred to as somebody's husband? Is that the thing that you are looking at?
No, I'm quite happy.
Okay.
Long women have been referred to as so-and-so's wife. That is fine. No, I'm just...
Yeah, that's fine. That's not it. Yeah. You see, my views are there for everybody on record to see, whether somebody in my family is in power or not in power, in office or not in office. Consistently, they have been there on the record. My criticism or sometimes my appreciation is not predicated on, is my friend in government or is my relative is government or my spouse is in government. If there is something that we called out, I do call out.
So I'm right in saying you believe in speaking truth to power. It doesn't matter who's in power.
Exactly, Sandhya. Especially Sandhya, you need to speak truth to power when the power doesn't speak truth to the people.
Okay, that's a very nice point. So, just to dwell a little bit more on the personal issue, you stepped down from Chandrababu Naidu's government, where you had a ministerial ranking as a media advisor, when the TDP and the BJP broke with each other, and there were some criticisms about Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman being in power in the BJP government in Delhi, and here you were the ex-partner politically. So, did you two have a discussion before you joined politics and in separate parties? Did you decide how you were going to work out? Because I'm sure there would have been possibilities that you would have considered, right? That things will not go along well between two political partners. So, did you have some kind of a discussion, and did you decide how you would deal with it?
My involvement in the AP government was not a political role, Sandhya.
Okay.
You see, and of course, my political career goes back to 1994, or even before that to the student politics. So my political career is not, 5-year-old or 6-year-old. Okay, that's one. The second thing is that, I, along with a lot of my friends and colleagues, we led an agitation to keep the state united against all odds.
Okay.
But anyway, the state was divided. And at that time, when the state was divided, and of course, I hail from that part of the state, from Andhra Pradesh, from West Godavari. So when the then chief minister had, we all wanted to build that state. And the then chief minister had, invited me to come and join his team so that, we can build a brand for Andhra Pradesh, communicate what Andhra Pradesh meant to, the world, what it could mean to the world, how to, attract investments and, contribute to the building of, because it's a new state. It's, United Andhra Pradesh was an industrial state, but after division, that part of the Andhra Pradesh state had become predominantly agrarian state. Entire IT industry had remained in Telangana and Hyderabad, that had no IT presence. Although the chief minister, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, was known for his IT and technology and things like that, but then he came to head a state which was, very poor in that kind of infrastructure. So that was the context in which, people like us joined the government and, helped the government to shape the. It has nothing to do with BJP or TDP or their political relations, etc., etc. But then, when politically these two parties have parted ways, there were some people trying to say that why don't you, you are here, you are there, why don't you speak to somebody, your wife or spouse, and your connections in Delhi to get the special status, as though these are all small little talk between two people, or it's not that, because there are larger policy issues. Then I thought it would be not good for me, not good for the then chief minister, not good for the state to deflect attention of the people into these things. Let people face the real issues. I was not there to hang around to a few perks of the office. I said, if that is the case, I do not want anybody to be embarrassed in this. So. But neither the state government should be embarrassed, nor the central government to be embarrassed. So I thought that's fine.
Okay. So why did you not continue in politics? I mean, you came from a political family. Your parents were both in politics. Why did you choose to be more a commentator than to continue actively in politics?
Sandhya, the point is that, just by being in a political party doesn't mean that you're in politics. You can be in politics, you can be political, even without being in a political party. Intervene, because when I led the agitation for a united Andhra Pradesh, I was not in any political party, but that was That was a very, very political act that I had undertaken.
Mm-hmm.
Now, today, when I speak about this, it's not just a comment. It is also actively intervening in the political process, in the political discourse. What I'm trying to say is politics is not just being a part of a political party or contesting an election or being an MP or an MLA or a minister.
Okay. Let's talk about, the situation that the media finds itself in now that you are a commentator and you have your own program. The government has turned out to be increasingly hostile to any kind of criticism. And what makes it worse is this army of social media trolls which attack anybody who expresses a different opinion. So what role do you think the media can play, and what do you think is the way forward for independent media?
The media should be independent. It should call out. That is the primary role of a media organization. But then, you see, the dynamics of media have changed so much over the years that it's considered more as a business activity. Of course, they have to make money, they have to pay salaries, they have to maintain their offices and infrastructure and network and all that. I do understand. But then that should be not as a result of the patronage of the government. So if you are a hostage to government patronage in order to make your revenues, then you are manipulable. This is one. And secondly, there are people who are not just manipulated, but they're willingly for whatever reason, they are towing the government line and supporting the government, defending the government, not calling out the government, not being critical of its omissions and commissions. This I call, in one of my posts and episodes, I said, there seems to be a Faustian bargain.
Mm-hmm.
This is something which is really disturbing. This is one. And you see, now, I don't have to refer to the names, but the channels, they continuously attack any anti-government or any criticism of the government. Media channels, newspapers, and television channels, presenters, editors. So this is something. Now, if you zero that onto their financial requirements, then the only hope that I see is something like what you're doing. It costs you very little. It's a low cost or no cost, but at the same time it has a huge reach. You can just call me up and I'm there and we talk and it just goes, and people come to know what you feel and I feel and what you think and I think. There's a transmission of ideas and analysis and talk and commentary. You don't need a gatekeeper.
Right.
So, for instance, if you need to voice a criticism, and you need to go onto the television or to a newspaper, if those two do not really entertain you, you're stuck. Your view or your opinion doesn't go out. Now here, the digital media, the social media, all these platforms, then there is some irresponsibility, there is some misuse, which is what is not misused. Everything is misused.
Yes,
but then if you look at the constructive side of it, there is a huge contribution that the digital media can play, the social media can play, independent journalists can play, independent commentators can play. I do not have to submit my my blog or my writing to somebody to scrutinize, to sit on judgment whether it is possible, whether it's publishable or not, and then what are the repercussions, what would the government think, whether it affects my advertising revenues or etc. etc. I don't have to fear now. So the media's role is not up to the mark now. I wish it plays the role of, um, you know, um, uh, somebody who
A conscience keeper.
looks at the government, scrutinizes the government's acts. This is the kind of, it's a kind of watchdog role that increasingly the media is abdicating.
That's a very sad reflection indeed, Dr. Prabhakar. But I'm glad that programs like yours are coming up. And like I said, they've already become very popular. So people are able to get unbiased analysis. It's also meant for the ordinary people who would like to get another point of view. So thank you very much for joining the program, Dr. Prabhakar. And it's really been a pleasure to have this quite a leisurely chat with you on so many different matters. Thank you very much.
Sandhya, thank you very much. It's one thing is I'm seeing you after a long time. It's such a pleasure to see you and such a pleasure to talk to you. And, I wish you all the best and do stay safe. And all the people who are watching this program, I wish them all the best and, stay safe. That's what I could tell you.